My name is Mary Ellen Fernandez. I'm 72 years old and I live in Harmony Springs, a little place so small it barely shows up on the map. Who would have thought that I, a lady with gray hair and hands weathered from so much work on the farm, would become the biggest talk of this town? I was never one to cause gossip, you know. I always kept to myself, minding my own business. Until that day. It was an October afternoon, sky clear as laundry on the line, when I received news that seemed more like a lie than truth. Me, at 61 years old, pregnant. Dr. Adams looked at me over his thick glasses and spoke with a trembling voice. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, you're expecting a baby." My heart almost jumped out of my chest. My legs went weak as porridge. I thought to myself, either this doctor has lost his mind or the world has turned upside down. How could a woman my age? I thought everything was dried up inside, had been for a long time. But there I was, actually expecting a child at 61 from a man 30 years younger than me. This in a town where walls have ears and windows have eyes. The scandal was brewing. Tongues started wagging faster than soap in hot water. "That old woman's crazy," some said. "It's a trick to hold on to a young man," others said. Some people told me to my face that this was God's punishment. Punishment for what? For allowing myself to feel love again? Alex, the baby's father, worked doing repairs at people's houses. He arrived in town with a backpack on his shoulders and that smile that seemed to light up everything around him. When he knocked on my door offering to fix my roof, I never imagined he would end up fixing my heart that had been broken after so much time alone. My daughters, who lived far away and barely visited me, suddenly appeared to give me a lecture. Sarah, the oldest, cried so much it seemed like she would flood the living room. Patricia, the youngest, called me irresponsible, said I was embarrassing the family, as if love and new life were something to be ashamed of. But the worst was the look from people on the street. Women who used to come to my house for coffee stopped coming. At church, the pew where I sat started getting empty on both sides. It was as if I had caught some contagious disease, you know? But it wasn't a disease. It was life growing inside me. In those first days, I cried hidden in the bathroom so no one would see. I asked God to give me strength and understanding because in the midst of all that confusion, one thing I felt clearly. That child was a gift, not a punishment. And I was going to love and protect him with all my strength, no matter what people said. And that's how I, Mary Ellen Fernandez, became everyone's topic of conversation in Harmony Springs, the crazy old woman who got pregnant at 61. But what nobody knew was that this was just the beginning of a story that would change not only my life, but the lives of many people in that town. Because God writes straight on lines we can't even imagine, my dear. And what started as shame ended up as the greatest miracle this town has ever seen. Harmony Springs is so small that if you sneeze at the entrance, someone says "bless you" at the exit. A place where everyone knows their neighbor's dog's name and even the brand of medicine that old Mr. Johnson takes for high blood pressure. It's a cozy little place with a central square where the elderly ladies gather to gossip and the old men play dominoes under that ancient oak tree they say was planted by the first settler here. I was born and raised on this land. I married here with Tommy, may God rest his soul, and became a widow 15 years ago. He was a good man, hard-working but too quiet. He died suddenly of a heart attack while fixing the back fence. Since then, I lived in that big house with blue windows and wooden gate, alone with my chickens, my plants, and my memories. My daughters Sarah and Patricia left for Chicago a long time ago. They'd call once in a while, send presents at Christmas and Easter. Sometimes. Sarah is a dentist, married to an engineer, has 2 kids who barely know me. Patricia works with computers, something I can't even explain properly. She says she didn't want kids because the world is too difficult. Both of them are always running, always too busy to come visit me. I got used to loneliness. I had my church friends, the sewing club on Wednesdays at Mrs. Linda's house, and the garden I tended with all my heart. Once in a while I'd go to my godmother Zelda's house for coffee and to hear the town news, which was almost always the same. Who got married, who separated, who owed money at Mr. Gerald's store. It was on a cloudy Monday in September that my life changed. It had rained hard the night before, and my old roof started leaking in 3 different corners of the house. Water was falling into pots I spread across the floor, making that dripping sound that keeps anyone awake. I decided to go to the weekly market to find someone who could fix my roof. That's where I saw him for the first time. Alex. Tall, dark, sun-weathered, with strong arms from hard work and a shy smile that appeared slowly on his face. He carried a ladder on his back and a toolbox in his hand. A simple sign read, "I do all kinds of work, masonry, plumbing, electrical." He wasn't from here. You could tell by his different accent when he spoke to me. "Good morning, ma'am. Need any work done?" And I, who was never one to talk much with strangers, found myself telling him about my roof, about the leaks, about how hard it was to find someone who did good work for a fair price. Alex listened to me attentively, his brown eyes fixed on me as if every word of mine mattered. It wasn't a look of pity, like many people give widowed elderly women. It was a look of respect. He was 34 years old, coming from Louisville, a city about 200 miles from here. He told me he had lost his job in construction and was traveling from town to town, picking up odd jobs to get by. "Ma'am, you can rest assured I'll fix that roof properly. Good work with a guarantee," he told me. And I don't know why, but I believed him right away. We arranged for early the next day. I offered to pay half in advance, but he refused. "Only after you approve the work." That night I barely slept. The house seemed less empty just knowing someone would come the next day. I prepared the back room in case he needed to stay a few days to finish the job. I made a creamy cornbread that melts in your mouth and set aside the most fragrant coffee I had. Alex arrived punctually at 7 a.m. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen when he knocked on the gate. I saw through the window him arranging the ladder, organizing his tools carefully. He had big, calloused hands that handled tools as if they were delicate instruments, hands of a man who respects work. I prepared a simple but hearty breakfast, homemade bread, cornbread, cheese that Godmother Zelda gave me, and peach jelly I made myself. I called him to eat before starting work. He was embarrassed, said it wasn't necessary, but ended up accepting. He ate with pleasure, praising everything. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, this is the best coffee I've had in months." While he worked on the roof, I did my things inside the house, but always found an excuse to pass through the yard and see how the work was going. And every time I went out, there he was, focused, sweating, but always with a smile when he saw me. At the end of the day, when he came down the ladder with his face dirty with cement and disheveled hair, I already knew something had changed inside me. "I'll need about 2 more days to finish, Mrs. Mary Ellen. There's more damage than we thought." I offered the back room so he wouldn't have to look for somewhere to stay. He accepted gratefully. And that's how it all began. A man fixing my roof without knowing he was also fixing a heart I thought had stopped beating long ago. Alex finished fixing my roof on the 3rd day, but he made up that he needed to check some rafters in the back, then that it would be better to take a look at the gutters too. I knew he was making excuses to stay longer, and deep in my heart, I wanted that. The house was happier when he was around. It was good to hear footsteps besides mine, to have someone to talk to during meals. We started with simple conversation, you know? Me praising the coffee he made early in the morning, strong as only he could make it. Him saying that men who work with cement have good hands that know how to feel things. We told stories to each other as if we'd known each other for years. He told me about his difficult childhood, about his father who left early, about how he learned to work construction as a boy. He talked about his dreams of having his own house someday, of wanting a family, something he never managed because he lived on the road. I told him about Tommy, about what it was like being widowed, about my daughters who moved away. I showed him old photos in the leather-covered album, the embroidery I did during sleepless nights, the garden that was my pride. And when I spoke, Alex looked into my eyes, really paying attention. It wasn't that look of someone waiting for you to finish so they can talk about their own life. It was the look of someone who's truly present, listening to every word. A week after he arrived, we were sitting on the porch drinking chamomile tea when he took my hand. It was such a simple gesture, but it made my heart race as if I were a young girl again. His hand was warm, rough, and held mine with a care that made me cry without meaning to. "Mrs. Mary Ellen," he said quietly, "you're the most special woman I've ever met." That was the beginning, a beginning I didn't expect, didn't plan, but that seemed as right as the sun rising every morning. Soon, he moved permanently to the little back room, but he spent more time in the big house with me. We watched TV together, tended the garden, went to the market. He taught me how to make rice the Kentucky way, with golden garlic. I taught him how to make pumpkin candy with coconut. But what we didn't realize was that the town's eyes were on us. All it took was for people to see Alex leaving my gate twice a week for Harmony Springs tongues to arm themselves like a snake ready to strike. At first, it was just whispers when we passed by. Then it became open gossip. "Mary Ellen's trying to raise a grandson by force," I heard Mrs. Odette say at Mr. Johnson's butcher shop, laughing loud for everyone to hear. "It's a shame, a woman her age with a young man like that." And when I walked in, everyone suddenly got quiet, as if I hadn't heard everything. At the corner market, Teresa, who studied with me in elementary school, pulled me by the arm and said she was worried about me. "Mary Ellen, this boy just wants your money. Open your eyes, woman." I replied that I didn't have any money, just my small retirement and the house Tommy left. She shook her head, as if I were a stubborn child. At church, where I'd been going every Sunday for over 40 years, the pew where I sat started getting empty on both sides. The ladies from the prayer group stopped inviting me to meetings. And the worst was when Father Anthony, in his Sunday sermon, talked about inappropriate behavior for one's age and looked directly at me. It didn't take long for the news to reach Chicago. My two daughters, who barely remembered my birthday, suddenly appeared on a Friday afternoon with faces like they were coming to solve a big problem. Sarah walked in, already talking loud, wanting to know where the opportunist was. Patricia, calmer but with eyes full of disapproval, sat with me in the kitchen. "Mom, what are you doing? The whole town is talking. This is embarrassing for the whole family." Sarah paced back and forth, going through my things as if looking for evidence of some crime. "This man is going to take everything you have. Don't you see that?" Patricia cried as if I were dying. "Mom, we worry. You're already old and this boy is too young. What does he want with a 61-year-old lady? Think about it. This doesn't make sense." I just listened, let them say everything they wanted. When they finished, I looked at both of them and said very calmly, "You two left, and left me here alone for years. Now you want to decide how I should live my life. You worry so much that you don't even call to see if I'm alive or dead. But when I find someone who makes me happy, then you show up to lecture me." They were speechless. Sarah still tried to put her foot down, saying she was going to talk to a lawyer, that I wasn't in condition to make decisions. Patricia just cried more. When Alex came home from work and found that scene, he almost turned around, but I called him to come in. "This is Alex," I introduced, "and he stays in my house because I want him to, because he respects me and treats me well, something many people out there don't do." My daughters spent the weekend trying to convince me to send Alex away, but they didn't see what I saw. They didn't see how he woke up early and prepared my coffee, how he sat with me on the porch and held my hand, how he laughed at my old stories as if they were the most interesting in the world, how he looked at me with admiration, not pity, how he washed dishes without me asking, how he truly listened to me, listened when I talked about my fears, my joys, my longings. On Monday, When they left promising to return with that lawyer, I sat with Alex on the porch and asked if he wanted to leave to avoid more problems. He looked at me and said, "Mrs. Mary Ellen, I'll only leave if you send me away, because for me, what we have is worth more than any gossip." And there, on that porch, under the curious gaze of neighbor Nancy, who was pretending to hang laundry just to spy, Alex kissed me for the first time. A sweet, affectionate kiss that made me feel as if the rest of the world had disappeared. A kiss that made me realize I was still alive, very much alive, and that I still had the right to feel, to love, and to be loved. What nobody in that town understood was that behind four walls, Alex and I were just two people who found companionship when they no longer expected it. Two souls who recognized each other despite the age difference, despite the crooked looks, despite the sermons. And that, my dear, nobody had the right to judge. After about 3 months of Alex living in my house, I started feeling different. At first, I thought it was just tiredness. After all, I was taking more care of the house, making elaborate meals every day, and even went back to tending the garden more carefully. Normal to get tired, right? After all, I'm no spring chicken anymore. But then came a nausea that wouldn't go away. Early in the morning, as soon as I put my feet on the floor, I had to run to the bathroom. The smell of coffee, which had always been delicious to me, started making my stomach turn. Even the perfume of the roses Alex planted in the yard, which was so pleasant, started making me feel sick. "Must be some virus," I told Alex, who looked at me worried while I turned white as paper every time I tried to eat something. He made lemon balm tea, bought ginger for me to chew, but nothing helped much. It was Zelda, my godmother of so many years, who told me something I didn't even have the courage to think. "Mary Ellen, have you thought that you might be pregnant?" She said this quietly while we were peeling potatoes in my kitchen. I laughed so hard I almost fell off the chair. "Zelda, for the love of God, I'm 61 years old. I haven't had regular periods for over 10 years now." "So what? My cousin Judy had a baby at 54, and the doctor said it was because she thought she couldn't anymore and stopped being careful." Zelda continued peeling potatoes as if she were talking about the most normal thing in the world. That idea kept hammering in my head. Alex and we didn't take precautions, it's true. Why would we, at my age? I thought that wasn't a concern anymore. Not even Tommy, God rest his soul, had gotten me pregnant in the last years of our marriage. But the symptoms only got worse. A heat in my body that wasn't normal, even in that hot Harmony Springs summer. A tiredness that stuck to my legs as if I had walked for miles. And those sore, sensitive breasts, even when the shower water hit them. I started remembering when I got pregnant with Sarah and Patricia over 30 years ago. A week later, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I took a bus to St. Francis Health Center at the town entrance. I preferred to go there instead of the neighborhood clinic, because at the clinic everyone knew me and I didn't want to feed more gossip. Mrs. Rita was the head nurse there for about 20 years. I knew her from Sunday Mass, but we weren't close. When I entered her little room, she adjusted her glasses on her nose tip and smiled. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, what brings you here today?" I swallowed hard and asked for a pregnancy test. She looked at me over her glasses and gave a little laugh. "A beta HCG for what, Mary Ellen?" "I'm having some strange symptoms, some dizziness, nausea," I tried to explain, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. "At your age, it must be the beginning of labyrinthitis or high blood pressure. Let's measure your blood pressure first," she said, as if explaining something to a stubborn child. "Rita, please, I just want to take the test. It's my right," I said firmly, looking into her eyes. She sighed, made a face like someone dealing with a crazy person, and filled out the paper. "You'll have to go to the lab downtown, and it only comes out in 3 days." Those 3 days seemed like 3 years. I didn't tell Alex or Zelda anything. I didn't want to create a commotion or feed hopes or fears. I returned to the clinic on the scheduled day with shaky legs from nerves. Mrs. Rita saw me in the waiting room and called me straight to the corner of her room. I noticed she was different. The mocking little smile was gone. She looked at me with wide eyes like someone seeing a ghost and said quietly, "Mary Ellen, you're pregnant." My heart jumped so big I thought it would come out of my mouth. "Are you sure, Rita? Can't it be a lab error?" "The result is very clear." She showed me the paper with numbers and letters I didn't understand, but there it was written, "positive," in big letters. I left there in a state of shock. The Harmony spring sun seemed stronger that day, almost blinding me. I sat on a square bench and started crying without knowing if it was from joy, fear, or pure amazement. Me, Mary Ellen Fernandez, about to be a mother again at 61. The following week, Rita referred me for another test, this time an ultrasound at Dr. Adams' private clinic. I paid with the little money I kept under the mattress so I wouldn't have to wait in the public health line. I wanted absolute certainty. Dr. Adams was an elderly gentleman with white hair and a paternal manner. When he put that cold gel on my belly and started sliding the device, I trembled so much he had to ask me to breathe deeply several times. "Mrs. Mary Ellen," he said, turning the little screen toward me, "here is your baby. By the size, you must be about 10 weeks along." On the screen, a little pulsing dot, a little heart beating, a life growing inside me. I did 2 more blood tests at different labs. All confirmed it. There was no more denying it. It was real. When I got home that day, Alex was in the yard fixing the fence. He smiled when he saw me, then immediately noticed something was different. "Did something happen, Mary Ellen? You're pale." I sat on the little yard stool and made him sit beside me. I opened my purse and took out the envelope with the result. "Alex, I've found out what I have, why I've been feeling sick." He took my hand, worried. "Is it something serious?" "Depends on your point of view," I replied, and handed him the paper. Alex looked at that paper for what seemed like an eternity. He didn't say anything, just stared at the result. Suddenly I saw a tear slide down his face, then another. He knelt in front of me, right there on the packed dirt of the yard, and hugged my waist, putting his face against my belly. "My child," he said quietly, his voice breaking. "My child." I had never seen a man cry like that, without shame, without trying to hide. He cried, hugging my still flat belly, as if he could already feel the baby in there. After a while, he lifted his wet face and looked at me with so much joy, he seemed like he would explode. "You're not angry or scared?" I asked, feeling my own tears flow. "Scared, Mary Ellen? This is the greatest gift God could give me, a child of yours, ours." And I cried too, but it wasn't just from joy, it was from fear. Fear of people, of gossip, of rumors that were already running wild and would now become a hurricane. Fear of my age, of my old body that would have to shelter a new life. Fear of the future, of what it would be like to raise a child at this stage of life. But when I saw Alex kneeling, kissing my belly, and making promises to be the best father in the world, something inside me warmed up. Life, which I thought had already given me everything it could, was putting me on this path again, a path I never imagined walking again, the path of motherhood at 61 in a small town where everyone knows each other and judges. That night, when we lay together in the bed that used to be just mine, Alex ran his hand over my face and said, "Mary Ellen, the whole town can say whatever they want, but this child will be born full of love, and that's all that matters." And I tried to believe that while listening to the crickets singing outside and feeling the warmth of his body next to mine. I tried to believe that love would be enough to face what was coming. The news of my pregnancy spread through Harmony Springs faster than fire in dry grass. I don't know how they found out. Maybe Rita from the clinic told someone, or maybe some neighbor saw the test paper when Alex hugged me in the yard. It doesn't matter. The fact is that one day I was trying to get used to the idea, and the next, the whole town already knew. What used to be whispers became shameless insults. Before, at least they pretended they weren't talking about me. Now they didn't even do that. They'd pass me on the street and turn their faces away. Some people would cross to the other side of the sidewalk as if I had some contagious disease. Once I was in line at the market when Mrs. Marlene, who attended the same church as me for over 30 years, looked me up and down and said loud for everyone to hear, "Some people have no shame, at the age to be a grandmother, wanting to play young." I stood there motionless, speechless, with my groceries in hand and a knot in my throat. There was a day when Nancy, my fence neighbor, spat on the ground when I passed by. Spat as if I were dirt. This same Nancy, who had drunk coffee at my table, who had cried on my shoulder when her husband got sick. The worst was at church. I'd always been devout, never missed a mass, helped at bake sales, knew everyone by name. When I entered there pregnant at 4 months, with a little belly that was starting to show, I heard the murmur, heads turning, looks of contempt, little laughs. Father Anthony, who was new to the parish, barely greeted me. In that Sunday's homily, he talked about modern times and the aberration society is accepting. He said there are people who don't even respect the nature God created, and that whoever wants to be a mother has a right age for it. He didn't mention my name, of course, but everyone knew he was talking about me. I left there before communion, with shaky legs and a bleeding heart. My friends, those I thought were true friends, disappeared. The phone stopped ringing. Visits ended. Zelda, my godmother, was the only one who kept coming, and even she was hesitant at first. "Mary Ellen, are you sure you want to go through all this at our age?" But at least she asked, didn't judge. Things kept getting worse. A mother from the elementary school, where I gave math tutoring to children twice a week, complained to the principal. She said she didn't want her son in the same room as Mary Ellen's son, as if my baby who hadn't even been born yet could contaminate other children with something. The principal, Margaret, who had always treated me well, called me to her office with an embarrassed look. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, maybe it would be better if you took leave until this situation normalizes." And so I lost even that little job that gave me so much joy helping children with numbers. My belly kept growing along with the town's rejection. The more the baby showed, the more people distanced themselves. It was as if I, who had always been part of that community, had become a stranger overnight. I remember one afternoon when I went to the pharmacy to buy vitamins the doctor prescribed, and Mr. Tiburcio, the pharmacist, served me with such a closed face as if he were disgusted. "You should be ashamed," he muttered while handing me the medicines. "A lady your age." I went home crying so hard I could barely see the path. I got home and collapsed in the kitchen chair, sobbing like a child. It was crying that came from deep down, crying from someone who lost a place that was always theirs. That's when I felt a hand on my back. Alex had come home from work early and heard me crying. He knelt in front of me, held my hands, and stayed there in silence, waiting for me to calm down. When I could finally speak, I told him everything: the pharmacy, the school, the church, the insults, the turned backs. "Do you want to leave here?" he asked, his eyes full of concern. "We can move, start over somewhere else where nobody knows us." I thought about my house, the house Tommy and I built, the yard where my daughters played, the trees I planted, the lifetime I built in that town, and I answered, "No, this is my house. This is my land. I won't run away because of evil tongues." And that's when I saw Alex smile, a proud smile. "Then let's stay and show this town that this baby is the greatest blessing God could send." From that day on, Alex started working even harder. He took jobs at 3 different houses the same day, left before sunrise, and came back when it was already dark. His hands became even more calloused, his face more sunburned, but he never complained. He saved every penny. One day he came home carrying wooden boards and tools. "What's this?" I asked. "I'm going to make our son's room," he answered, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And on weekends, when he wasn't working elsewhere, he spent all day sawing, hammering, building. With his own hands, Alex transformed that empty little room that used to be just a storage space into a special place. He painted the walls light blue, made a new window facing the yard, built a wooden crib with such care it looked like professional carpenter work. He also renovated our yard, planted more trees, fixed the fence, made a swing hanging from the oak tree branch. "For when he grows up," he said with shining eyes. Every night before sleeping, Alex would run his hand over my now very round belly and talk quietly to the baby. He told stories, made promises. "I'm going to teach you to fish, to play ball, to fix things. I'm going to be the best father in the world for you." And then he'd kiss my belly and say, "Thank you, my God, for this miracle." It was so beautiful to see that man, so strong on the outside, be so delicate and loving. For my prenatal appointments in Louisville, because in Harmony Springs I no longer had the courage to go, Alex made a point of taking the day off to accompany me. He asked the doctor everything, wrote down recommendations, held my hand during exams. It was as if the whole world had turned its back on us, but God and Alex held my hand so I wouldn't fall. In those moments when I almost gave up, when the weight of looks and words was too heavy, it was Alex who gave me strength. "This people will see," he said with a certainty that impressed me. "When our son is born, they'll see that it was God who sent him to us, and they'll have to swallow everything they said." And so, between insults from outside and love from inside, I continued with my high-risk pregnancy at 61 in a town that only knew how to judge but understood nothing about miracles. My pregnancy wasn't easy, as you can imagine. A 61-year-old woman wasn't made to carry a baby, at least that's what doctors say. But my son and I kept proving otherwise with each consultation. The doctor in Louisville always shook his head admiringly when he saw the tests. "You have a strong body, Mrs. Mary Ellen, and this boy does too." I entered the 7th month with a belly that seemed like it would explode. My feet swelled so much that only my old flip-flops fit. My back hurt terribly, but I was happy. Every kick, every movement of the baby was like God saying, "Everything's fine, Mary Ellen, trust me." Alex wouldn't let me do almost anything. Clean house? Not even think about it. Cook? Only if seated. Even hanging clothes on the line, he'd make excuses to do it instead. "You need to rest, Mary. Think about the baby," he'd say, and I'd let him because it was good to feel that care. Zelda came almost every day, brought soup, brought sweets, stayed to chat. She got used to the idea of my pregnancy, and even started knitting little clothes for the baby. "Blue if it's a boy, yellow if it's a girl," she said. She never liked pink much. One night, almost entering the 8th month, I dreamed of Tommy, my late husband. I dreamed he was sitting on the porch in that rocking chair he loved so much and was smiling at me. "Take good care of the boy, Mary Ellen. He's special," Tommy said in the dream. I woke up with a warm heart, as if I had received a blessing. But the following dawn, the greatest trial of my life began. It was a cold July night. The wind was beating on the window, and I had asked Alex to put another blanket on the bed. I was sleeping heavily in that way, only a tired pregnant woman sleeps, when I woke up with pain so strong I couldn't even scream. It was as if a knife was entering my belly, tearing everything inside. I put my hand under the sheet and felt something wet. When I pulled my hand back, I saw it was covered in blood. A lot of blood. "Alex," I managed to call with a weak voice that didn't even sound like mine. He woke up immediately, as if he'd been waiting for the call. When he saw the blood, his face turned white as paper. "My God, Mary Ellen, the baby." He jumped out of bed in one leap, put on the first clothes he found, and picked me up without saying anything. He didn't even wait to put on shoes. He went out barefoot in his pajamas with me in his arms. He put me carefully in the back seat of the old car he had bought on installments recently. "Hold on tight, love. Hold on tight," he repeated, while driving like crazy down the dark road connecting Harmony Springs to Louisville. The pain came in waves, each one worse than the last. I felt blood flowing and wetting the car seat. My vision started getting blurry, as if fog had descended in front of me. I started feeling cold, very cold, despite the night not being that freezing. "Alex, if something happens to me," I started to say. "Don't even talk about that." He cut me off, looking through the rearview mirror with eyes full of terror. "Nothing's going to happen. You two are going to be fine." But I knew something very wrong was happening. My body, which had already gone through 2 pregnancies decades ago, was sending me warning signals I couldn't ignore. The baby was quiet, not moving anymore, and there was so much blood, so much blood. The trip to Louisville normally took an hour. Alex did it in 35 minutes on that winding road. He entered the emergency of St. Mary Hospital screeching tires, honking like crazy. The security guards at the door came running, thinking it was some drunk causing trouble. When they saw the situation, they called the nurses immediately. They put me on a stretcher and ran with me through the white, cold hospital corridors. Alex came behind, barefoot with dirty feet, pajamas stained with my blood, shouting to save his son. I remember Dr. Maurice, the doctor on duty, a young man who seemed to have just graduated from college, examining my belly with equipment, asking quick questions I could barely answer. "Placental abruption," I heard him tell the nurse. "We need to operate now." They took me straight to the operating room. The world seemed to be spinning around me. The bright lights hurt my eyes. The blood wouldn't stop flowing. "Her pressure is dropping," they said, before giving me anesthesia. Dr. Maurice approached me. His young face was serious, worried. He held my hand and spoke quietly but with cruel clarity. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, the situation is critical. The placenta has completely detached, and you're losing a lot of blood. The baby is suffering. The heartbeats are weak." He paused, swallowed hard, and continued. "Given your age and condition, we have a difficult choice to make. Either we try to save the baby or you. The chances of saving both are very small." The world stopped at that instant. A choice no mother should have to make. An impossible choice. I saw Alex on the other side of the room being held by 2 nurses, trying to prevent him from entering the sterile area. He was crying like a child, screaming my name, our son's name. The baby was only 7 months in my belly, so small, so fragile, but already so loved. "Save him, doctor," I said with a voice that came out stronger than I expected. "Save my son. He deserves to be born. I've lived enough." The doctor tried to argue. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, are you sure?" "My son," I repeated, feeling tears streaming down my face. "Save my son. That's the only thing that matters now." I saw Dr. Maurice nod to the team. I saw the nurse prepare something in a syringe. I felt the needle enter my arm and the cold of anesthesia spreading. I started getting drowsy. My last thoughts before passing out were of Alex and the baby I was carrying. I thought of Tommy, too, and the dream I had. "Take good care of the boy, Mary Ellen. He's special." I tried, Tommy, I thought as darkness enveloped me. "Now he's your son, too. Take care of him up there." And I closed my eyes thinking it was my end, thinking I'd never see the sunrise again, never smell fresh coffee in the morning, never hear the birds singing in the yard, never know my son's little face, never feel his warmth in my arms. At that moment, I accepted dying, accepted giving my life for his, and I felt an immense peace envelop me, as if thousands of angels were around me, carrying me away from that cold hospital room, away from pain, blood, and fear. "My son will live," was my last thought, and I smiled inside, knowing I had made the right choice, the only possible choice for a mother. And then came nothingness, a complete, profound nothingness, without dreams, without sensations, as if I had dived into a dark and silent ocean where not even God could reach me. Or at least, that's what I thought at that moment. But God had other plans. plans that neither the most experienced doctor nor the most skeptical person could explain. Because what happened next can only be called one thing: miracle. I don't know how long I stayed in that darkness. It could have been a minute or 1,000 years. I had no notion of anything, just that profound silence, that immense peace. I felt no pain, no fear, nothing. It was as if I had become smoke scattered in the air, without body, without weight. But then suddenly came a light. It wasn't just any light we see every day. It was a light so strong, so pure that it seemed to wash one's soul. And in the middle of that light, I saw Tommy. He was there, smiling, younger than when he died, without the worry lines that marked his face. He extended his hand to me as if calling me. "Tommy," I called, but no sound came out. It was as if we talked without words. "Not yet, Mary Ellen," he said with that calm smile he always had. "It's not your time yet. You have to go back. There are people waiting for you." Then I felt a force pulling me back, as if someone had tied a rope around my waist and was dragging me back. The light got weaker, Tommy disappeared, and I started feeling an enormous weight, as if they had placed a stone on my chest. And then suddenly, I opened my eyes. Everything was white. The ceiling, the walls, everything. I thought I was still dreaming because the light was too bright, hurting my eyes. I blinked several times until I could focus. Gradually, I understood I was in a hospital room. I turned my head slowly, feeling a sharp pain in my neck, and saw Alex sitting in a chair beside the bed. He was unshaven, with deep dark circles, disheveled hair. He looked like he had aged 10 years in one night. But what caught my attention most was what he had in his arms. A small blue bundle he held, as if it were made of glass. I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. I could only make a strange sound, almost a moan. But it was enough. Alex raised his head immediately, and when he saw me with open eyes, it was as if the whole world had stopped. "Mary," he called quietly, as if afraid it was just his imagination. "Mary, you're awake." I managed to nod slightly. His face transformed. I never saw anyone cry like that. It wasn't crying from sadness, but relief so great it seemed like it would explode. Tears streamed down his face, even wetting his beard. "He's alive, Mary," Alex said, approaching with that little blue bundle. "He's alive, our son." He tilted the bundle in my direction, and for the first time I saw my son's little face. He was so small, so fragile, his skin still red and wrinkled, little eyes closed, mouth the size of a grape. He had a few strands of black hair stuck to his little head. He was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. "The doctor said he's very strong," Alex continued, his voice breaking. "He cried as soon as he was born, even being premature. He has warrior lungs." I tried to speak again, and this time a whisper came out. "I'm alive too." Alex knelt beside the bed with the baby in one arm and holding my hand with the other. "The doctor said it was a miracle, Mary. You lost so much blood they thought you wouldn't resist. They had to give you transfusions. Your heart almost stopped twice during surgery." At that moment, Dr. Maurice entered the room. When he saw me awake, he stopped at the door, amazed. He checked his watch as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Mrs. Mary Ellen," he said, approaching the bed. "You shouldn't be conscious yet. The medication is too strong." "She's strong, doctor," Alex said proudly. "Strong like our boy." The doctor examined my eyes with a little light, checked my pulse, and shook his head admiringly. "I've never seen anything like this in my entire career. You were in critical condition less than 24 hours ago. We had to remove your uterus to contain the hemorrhage, but even so, your chances were minimal. And now, look at you." "It was God, doctor," I managed to whisper. "I saw a light." Dr. Maurice smiled without confirming or denying. He was too young, probably educated in hard science that doesn't believe in miracles. But I knew what I had seen, knew I had been on the other side and had been sent back. As for your son, the doctor continued, he's also an exceptional case. For a premature baby of 32 weeks, born in such adverse conditions, he's showing surprising vitality. He didn't even need a respirator, which is rare for babies this gestational age. He adjusted the IV in my arm and said he'd return later for new tests. Before leaving, he stopped at the door and looked at the three of us, me in bed, Alex kneeling beside, and the baby in his lap. "I'm not a religious man," he said, "but if I ever saw in my life something I could call a miracle, it was what happened in this room in the last 24 hours. When he left, Alex placed our son on my chest very carefully. He was so light, so small, but I could feel his strength. His little heart beat fast against mine like a frightened bird. His skin was warm and soft. I was too weak to hold him properly, but just feeling that little body against mine, something changed inside me. "He doesn't have a name yet," Alex said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I wanted to wait for you to wake up so we could choose together." I looked at that perfect little face and knew without any doubt what his name should be. "Gabriel," I said, remembering the light, Tommy, the return from death. "His name is Gabriel." Alex smiled. "Gabriel," he repeated, testing the sound. "It's beautiful. Does it mean something?" "It's an angel's name," I explained. "The archangel of good news, because he came as medicine for our life." I hesitated, not knowing if I should tell about the light, about seeing Tommy. Alex might think it was the effect of medicine, drugs, anesthesia, but he just squeezed my hand and said, "Because it was an angel who brought you both back to me." At that moment, as if understanding we were talking about him, little Gabriel opened his eyes for the first time. They weren't the vague, unfocused eyes of a newborn. They were eyes that seemed to see, understand, eyes that already had their own light. "Look, Alex," I murmured, moved. "He's looking at us." Alex leaned over and kissed our son's little forehead. "Welcome to the world, Gabriel," he said quietly. "You gave us a scare, you know. But every second of fear was worth it. You're our miracle." And so we stayed, the three of us, an unlikely family formed against all odds. A 61-year-old woman who came back from the brink of death, a 34-year-old man who never imagined being a father like this, and a premature baby who was too strong for his size. I stayed 2 weeks in the hospital. Each day was progress, a surprise for the doctors. "You're recovering at an impressive speed," said Nurse Linda, who took care of me on the night shift. "If you continue like this, you'll soon be home with your son." Gabriel stayed in the incubator just as a precaution, but didn't need any special treatment. He grew fast, nursed eagerly, cried loud when he wanted something. "This boy's in a hurry to live," commented Dr. Carolina, the pediatrician, while examining him. When we finally got discharged, Alex came to pick us up with the car all decorated with blue balloons. He didn't look like the same man who had taken me to the hospital that desperate night. He was shaved, in new clothes, with a smile that didn't fit his face. On the way back to Harmony Springs, I looked at the sky through the car window and whispered a silent thanks for being alive, for having my son in my arms, for having a man like Alex beside me, and for knowing without any doubt that life is much more mysterious and wonderful than we imagine. I looked at the sky and understood. God had decided for me. He had important things for me to do still in this world, and the most important was raising that little boy who slept peacefully in my lap, not knowing that his simple existence was already the greatest miracle that town had ever seen. Returning to Harmony Springs with Gabriel in my arms was like entering a different story. The town that had turned its back on me now turned again, but with different eyes. It was as if everyone had heard about the miracle. Me almost dead in the hospital, the premature baby who survived, doctors saying there was no explanation. The news ran faster than water down a hill. We called our son Gabriel, angel's name. Gabriel, the archangel of good news, and there couldn't be a more right name because that little boy healed not only my life, but many people's lives in that town. In the first week we returned home, I was still weak, recovering from surgery. Gabriel was tiny, needed to nurse every 3 hours. I didn't have milk because of my age and the surgery, so we gave him bottles. Alex stayed awake with me at dawn, warmed milk, changed diapers, helped me get up from bed. He didn't want to hire anyone to help. He said he wanted to take care of us himself. I remember the first visit we received. It was Zelda, my godmother, with a carrot cake still warm and a little bag of baby clothes she had made herself. She entered kind of awkwardly, like someone who doesn't know what to say. But when she saw Gabriel sleeping in the little crib Alex had made, her eyes filled with tears. "Mary Ellen, he's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen in my life," she said, putting her hand over her mouth. And he really was. Gabriel, even being premature, was beautiful. He had thick black hair, big dark eyes like Alex's, and light skin that seemed like velvet. His little hands were so tiny they fit entirely around my finger. After Zelda came Mrs. Judy from the store. She brought a package of diapers and powdered milk. "It's a gift," she said without really looking me in the eyes, as if ashamed. I knew she had been one of those who talked about me most when she learned about the pregnancy, but now she was there with gifts and an unspoken apology. Days passed and more people appeared at our door. They brought food, little clothes, diapers, or just came to meet Gabriel. They had curiosity, of course. They wanted to see with their own eyes the miraculous baby born from a 61-year-old woman. But there was no longer that look of judgment. It was a look of amazement, admiration, as if only then they had understood that life has mysteries we don't control. The most surprising change was with my daughters. Sarah and Patricia, who had treated me like crazy when they learned about the pregnancy, now called every day, wanting to know how their little brother was doing. Patricia was the first to come visit, about 15 days after we returned from the hospital. She arrived alone with a teddy bear bigger than Gabriel and eyes full of doubts. When I put the baby in her arms, I saw something change in her face. It was as if all the criticism, all the judgment had melted instantly. She held her little brother carefully, and when he opened his eyes and seemed to smile at her, Patricia cried like a child. "Mom, forgive me," she said between sobs. "I said so much nonsense, judged so much, but he's perfect." And there, at that moment, I knew I had gotten my daughter back. Sarah took longer to come. She only came when Gabriel was almost 2 months old. She brought her husband and 2 children. My grandchildren I barely knew. It was the first time she had stepped in my house in almost 3 years. She arrived serious, formal, as if on a work visit. When she saw Gabriel, she stood at the door looking. The baby had already gained weight, already held his little head firm, already recognized voices. He looked at her with those big, curious eyes and made a little sound as if saying, "Hi." That's when the ice broke. Sarah approached, took him in her arms, and hugged him as if hugging the whole world. "He has your eyes, Mom," she said quietly. And it was true. Despite having Alex's eye color, the way of looking, the expression, was just like mine, as if he had taken from each of us the best we had. Meanwhile, Gabriel kept growing strong and healthy, to the amazement of the doctors who followed him. Each appointment was the same thing. "This boy has impressive vitality," Dr. Maurice, who delivered him, would say. It was hard to believe that baby had been born so prematurely and in such critical circumstances. The biggest surprise of all came when Gabriel was about 5 months old. We were at home on a Sunday afternoon when someone knocked on the door. It was Father Anthony, the same one who had talked about modern aberrations in his sermon. He was alone, holding a package wrapped in blue paper. "Mrs. Mary Ellen," he said awkwardly. I came to meet the boy and bring a gift." I invited him in, even with my heart tight, remembering how he had treated me. Alex was in the yard fixing the chicken coop and came into the living room with an unfriendly face when he saw the priest, but I signaled for him to stay calm. Father Anthony sat on the edge of the sofa, holding the package in his lap. I went to get Gabriel, who had just woken from his afternoon nap. He already laughed, already recognized people, already stretched his little arms asking to be held up. When the priest saw that child, something happened. It was as if he had seen a ghost. He turned so pale. He looked at Gabriel, then at me, then at Alex, and again at Gabriel. Can I hold him?" he asked in a voice that didn't sound like his. I carefully placed the baby in his arms. Gabriel looked at the priest curiously, gave a little smile, and stretched his little hand until he touched his face. And Father Anthony did something I never imagined I'd see. He cried. He cried like a child, without shame, in front of us. "Mrs. Mary Ellen, Mr. Alex," he said between sobs, "I came to ask forgiveness for what I said, for what I thought. I judged what I didn't understand, and God showed me how wrong I was." He told us he had gone to visit a priest friend in Louisville, and there heard about the miracle that had happened at St. Mary Hospital. A 61-year-old woman and a premature baby who shouldn't have survived. When he discovered it was me, he felt as if God had slapped him in the face. "This boy is a blessing," he said, looking at Gabriel with reverence, "and I would like to baptize him if you allow me. It would be an honor." We accepted. Gabriel's baptism was the biggest event Harmony Springs had ever seen. The church was packed, with people even outside. The same people who used to turn their faces away from me now wanted to be godfathers, wanted to touch the baby, wanted to be part of that story. And you know what Father Anthony said during the ceremony? That Gabriel had come to teach a lesson to the whole town, not to judge what we don't understand, that God writes straight on crooked lines, and that true love has no age. When he poured holy water on my son's head, the baptismal font overflowed with so much water. To this day, the people of Harmony Springs tell that they saw the water shine strangely when it touched Gabriel's head, and that the whole church was filled with a flower scent nobody knew where it came from. And time passed. Gabriel grew strong and intelligent. He learned to walk early. At 10 months, he was already taking his first steps holding Alex's hand. He spoke his first words before most children, Dada and Mama, calling us. At 1 year, he already spoke short sentences, to everyone's amazement. Today, he's 11 years old and is the joy of our life. He runs around the yard as if he had wings on his feet, climbs trees like a little monkey, raises birds in shoe boxes. He has a special way with animals. Even the most skittish ones approach him. At school, he's the best student in the class, especially in mathematics. But what most draws attention in Gabriel is his look. He has a brightness in his eyes that seems to carry the sun inside him. And the people who laughed at me, who turned their backs on me, who said so much evil, now call me Mrs. Mary Ellen with respect. Mothers ask for Gabriel to play with their children, say he's a good influence. The old men at the square want him to sit and listen to stories, say he listens like no one else. Even Father Anthony, who's now our friend, says Gabriel has a special gift for comforting people. The other day, Nancy, that same neighbor who spat on the ground when I passed, came to ask if Gabriel could go to her house to teach her grandson how to make a little wooden house for the dog. He went, of course, and came back saying, "Mrs. Nancy makes the best cheese bread he's ever eaten in his life." That's how things changed. The boy who was supposed to be a cause of shame became a cause of pride, not only for me and Alex, but for the whole town. The same people who called me crazy now call me Mother, with respect in their voice. And when I walk down the street with Gabriel, there's always someone who stops to ask for the boy's blessing. It's like I always say, God knows what he's doing, and sometimes he uses the most unexpected paths to bring the greatest blessings. Life isn't like movies where after a miracle, everything becomes a bed of roses. Even with all the change in how the town saw me, even with Gabriel bringing so much joy, we still faced many challenges. Raising a child after 60 isn't easy, I won't lie to you. There were days my body couldn't keep up with that boy's pace. When he started crawling, My God, it seemed like he had motors in his little legs. I'd turn my back for a second, and he was already under the table or trying to climb the shelf. Alex continued working hard. He got a steady job at New Horizon Construction Company that was building new apartment buildings near the bus station. He'd leave home before sunrise and come back with his back bent from tiredness. But never, not even once, did he complain. He'd get home, and no matter how exhausted he was, he still had energy to play ball with Gabriel in the yard, to read stories before bed, to help me with house things. Alex is 45 today. His hair started getting some gray threads at the temples, which gives him a different charm. His hands remain calloused from hard work, but they're the gentlest hands I've ever felt in my life. He still looks at me the same way he looked at me in those first days when he was fixing my roof, as if I were the most precious thing in the world. Of course, not everything is perfect. We argue like any couple. There are days he comes home late from work and I already have a sour face. There are days I complain about the mess he leaves in the garage with tools scattered around. There are days he gets irritated because I spoil Gabriel too much, or because I insist on doing things the doctor told me to avoid. But you know what I learned? That fighting doesn't kill true love. That after the storm, we always find a way back to what matters. Alex takes care of me as if I were Crystal, but a feisty Crystal, as he says. I never saw Crystal with so much opinion, he jokes when I'm stubborn about something. Our routine is simple, but full of small joys. I wake up early before both of them and prepare coffee. I like that moment alone in the kitchen, listening to the birds outside and smelling the fresh coffee. I make cornbread or cheese bread when I have time. Then I wake Alex, who always asks for just 5 more minutes before getting up with his hair all messed up. Gabriel wakes up by himself. Seems like he has an alarm clock inside him. 7 o'clock sharp, he's already in the kitchen in pajamas, hair sticking up, asking for chocolate milk. He has breakfast telling about dreams he had, talking about plans for the day, asking 1,000 questions I sometimes don't even know how to answer. Then Alex goes to work, Gabriel goes to school, and I stay taking care of the house. I can't do everything I used to. Kneeling to clean under furniture is a thing of the past, but I still manage the basics. I tend the garden, which now even has strawberries Gabriel planted. I feed the chickens, collect eggs, make lunch with what we harvest from the garden. When Gabriel comes back from school, the house fills with life again. He brings friends to play in the yard, makes up stories with toys, draws, does experiments he sees on the internet. He's too curious, this boy, wants to know how everything works, where it comes from, where it goes. Alex arrives at the end of the afternoon, takes a long shower to wash away the tiredness, and has dinner with us. This is my favorite moment of the day, the 3 of us at the table, telling about our day, laughing at Gabriel's silly comments, making weekend plans. Then Alex helps Gabriel with homework, especially math, which he's good at. Our house continues simple, with the blue walls now a bit faded and the yard full of fruit trees. We have chickens, a mutt dog called Smokey that Gabriel found on the street, and a black cat that answers to Shadow. The smell of cornbread is almost always in the air, mixed with the perfume of dahlias I planted in front. On weekends, we receive visitors. My daughters come more frequently now. Sarah brings the grandchildren who love playing with their younger uncle. Patricia, who never wanted children, is the spoiling aunt who brings gifts and takes Gabriel on outings. It's funny how his birth brought the whole family together again. Godmother Zelda still comes for coffee almost every day. She brings Polvillo cookies she knows Gabriel loves. She's already elderly, with difficulty walking, but doesn't lose her joy or taste for conversation. "It's this boy who keeps me alive," she always says, pointing to Gabriel. Life isn't perfect, of course. I have days of joint pain, days when tiredness seems like it will knock me down. Sometimes I catch myself worried about the future. After all, I'm 72 years old. How much longer will I have to see my son grow up? Will I get to know the grandchildren Gabriel will someday give me? But then I look out the window and see Alex teaching Gabriel to fix the bicycle. I see the big, calloused hands of the father holding the still small hands of the son, showing him how to hold the tool. I hear their laughter, so similar, echoing through the yard, and I think, even if I'm not here to see everything, I know my son will be fine. He has the best father I could have chosen. Sarah asked me once if I don't regret it, if raising a child at this age isn't too much sacrifice. I replied that sacrifice is living without love, without purpose. It's waking up in the morning and having no reason to get out of bed. It's looking at the future and only seeing loneliness. That's sacrifice. Because Gabriel, even on difficult days, even when he tests my patience like only a child knows how to do, is the greatest joy I've ever experienced. Each discovery of his is like it were mine too. Each achievement, from the first step to the first A at school, fills my heart with pride that doesn't fit in my chest. And Alex is the companion I didn't even know I could still find in this life. We love each other, like only those who survived chaos can love, with gratitude, with patience, with the certainty that each day together is a gift that can't be wasted on silly things. People still look at us on the street, still comment, but now it's different. Look there, Mrs. Mary Ellen's family, they say. Family. That little word I thought I'd never hear associated with my name again. There was a day not long ago when I was sitting on the porch watching Gabriel play with Smokey, when Alex sat beside me and took my hand. We stayed there without saying anything, just watching our son run around the yard, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun, hearing the sound of cicadas. "What are you thinking about?" he asked after a while. "About how life goes in circles," I replied. About how I thought I had already lived everything I had to live, that I just had to wait for time to pass. And then you appeared at the market with that ladder on your back. He smiled and squeezed my hand. I thank God every day for that leaky roof. That's what we have. A simple house with chickens in the yard, the smell of cornbread in the air, and the sound of Gabriel making up stories with his toys. We have a love that defied the whole town, a son doctors say is a miracle, and the certainty that it's never, never too late to be happy. And that, my dear, that's wealth. That's the true miracle. You know, my child, there are days I sit in the porch rocking chair, look at Harmony Springs' starry sky, and think about how life is full of mystery. I never imagined that at 61, when I thought I had already lived everything I had to live, God would give me a new love and a son. This story I just told isn't from a soap opera or book. It's my life. A life that completely changed when I thought I could only wait for time to pass. A life that gained new colors when the world said I should be content with black and white. There are many people out there who give up being happy because they heard someone say they're past the right age. People who put dreams in drawers because they think the time to fulfill them has passed. People who believe when they're told, "That's not for your age." But I ask, who invented the right age to be happy? Who said we have expiration dates to start over? Who determined that after 60, life is just an appendix, a waiting room? Look at me. At 61, when most ladies my age were knitting and waiting for grandchildren's visits on Sundays, I was pregnant. I was discovering new love. I was facing an entire town to defend my right to be happy the way life had presented to me. It wasn't easy, as you saw. There was crying, fear, people turning their faces away. There were moments I thought I would really die. But today, looking back, I wouldn't change anything, nothing at all. Because every tear, every insult, every door slammed in my face brought me here, a 72-year-old woman who can say with an overflowing heart that she's happy. And it's not lukewarm happiness, those resigned ones of people who settle for little. It's vibrant happiness that wakes me every day wanting to see the sunrise, to hear my son call Mom, to feel Alex's hug when he comes home from work. Just yesterday, Gabriel came from school all excited because the teacher asked him to write an essay about his hero. You know who he chose? Me, his mother. He wrote that I'm a heroine because I gave my life for him before even knowing him, because I face the world every day with a smile, even when my joints hurt, even when my body gets tired. He read the essay to me, and when he finished, he looked at me with those eyes that seemed to hold all the stars in the sky and said, "Mom, I'm the luckiest boy in the world because God chose you for me." I was speechless. I could only hug my son and cry, because at that moment I completely understood the purpose of everything I lived. I understood why I came back from the brink of death in that operating room. I understood why Tommy appeared in the light to send me back. We spend our whole lives thinking we know what's best for us. We make plans, trace paths, and get frustrated when things don't go as we imagined. But sometimes, just sometimes, life comes with a surprise so big, so unexpected, that we can only stand with our mouths open, admiring God's wisdom. Even with all the difficulty, even with all the pain, even with all the prejudice I faced, today I look anyone in the eyes and say, it was worth it. Every second was worth it. Because my son's laughter when he plays in the yard, Alex's hug when I come home tired from the market, the house full on Sunday with my daughters and grandchildren, that's priceless. I saw an entire town change because of our love. I saw people who judged me ask for forgiveness with tears in their eyes. I saw transformation happen not only in my life, but in so many people's lives around me. Father Anthony, that same one who criticized me in his sermon, today is one of the biggest defenders of the idea that love has no age. He even uses our story as an example in Sunday homilies. God writes straight on crooked lines, he says, and sometimes uses the most unexpected paths to teach us about true love. So if someone tells you that you're past the right age, that you no longer have time to be happy, that your dreams are nonsense at this stage of life, look at me. Tell my story. Say you know a woman who at 61 gained true love and a son who is her miracle. Say this woman, instead of hiding in shame when the whole town talked about her, raised her head and moved forward. Say this woman, when she had to choose between her own life and her son's, didn't hesitate for even a second. And also say that this woman, by some mystery that not even doctors explain, survived to tell the story. Today I'm called Mother, with pride. The same people who called me crazy, irresponsible, shameful, today look at me with respect. Not because I changed to please them, but because I followed my heart even when everyone said I was wrong. My godmother Zelda always says Gabriel is the miracle boy, and I agree. But the miracle wasn't just him being born strong after everything that happened. The miracle wasn't just me surviving surgery doctors thought would be fatal. The miracle was transformation. The miracle was love conquering prejudice. The miracle was life blooming where only darkness was expected. I've lived enough to know life doesn't give us guarantees. I don't know how much more time I'll have on this earth. I don't know if I'll see Gabriel graduate, marry, have children. But I know that each day I wake up and can see his smile, hear his laughter, feel his hug is a gift beyond measure. And if you doubt everything I told you, if you think it's a made-up or exaggerated or embellished story, I understand. There are things in this life that are really hard to believe. There are blessings so great they seem like fantasy. But I invite you. Come to my house for coffee. Sit on my porch, try my cornbread, talk to Alex, meet Gabriel. See with your own eyes how love can transform everything. Then you tell me if my son is a figment of my imagination or a gift from heaven. Because in the end, what I learned from all this is that it's never, never too late to start over. It's never too late to love. It's never too late to be happy. Life can surprise us in the last second, when we least expect it, in the most unexpected way. And when that happens, when surprise knocks on your door, don't be afraid. Open your arms and receive it, even if everyone says you're crazy, even if the whole town laughs at you. Because who knows, it might be the beginning of your own miracle.